right now. And they're just a monthly coaching check-in call. Linda really takes the lead on these and delivers the content or brings in guest speakers, and we leave plenty of room for just general questions and answers and stuff like that too. We have a lot of fun together. So with that, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking, I know your time is valuable and sparse, and so we're grateful that you would make the decision to spend a little bit of it with us this afternoon. So I'll hand it over to Linda.
Great, thank you, Luke. Hello, I'm happy to see you all again, and I have to apologize because I'm going to have to run out in about 20 minutes, but really glad everybody is here. And before I do run out, don't forget you can sign up for coaching sessions, and I will get that link and send it to everybody. I have a couple of people in this room. I didn't email Beth last week, and I have to email her because I want to know how things have been going. But it's been really good. And I want to start, I'm testing out an icebreaker. So I need to test it out with you all before I introduce Jeffrey. And this icebreaker is, what is something you have on your desk that you think other people would be surprised by? You can put it in the chat. Okay, Luke, except you say it.
All right, I'll show mine.
Oh, great, or you can show it. That's awesome.
So somebody, I'm at the library right now. I'm at the ThinkSpot makerspace kind of co-working space at the Mesa Public Library Red Mountain branch. Jeffrey is the ThinkSpot librarian. You guys are going to hear from him more later. But so somebody, I was doing this at the coffee shop the other day, and somebody actually stopped me. I have a stand for my laptop. So I work from coffee shops and libraries and stuff, and oftentimes I'm just like hunched over my computer, terrible posture, whatever. So I bought this stand for like $30, and I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can kind of see that. It folds up, folds flat, fits my backpack, and then it just folds out, and I can kind of prop my laptop up on it. And not only do I look like a huge nerd, but it helps my posture. So
it's like a standing
win-win.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
you get good posture and you get to look like a nerd. So
handprint tulip. Oh, this is great. Thank you. A mandrake. Wow. Oh, and Elaine has one. Please. Cardboard fan. That's very cool. Keep putting them in. It's just really great to see, because it's also one of the things that Luke and I have talked about is this is Code Club, and we're a club too, so building the relationship with everybody is really important. You get to know each other. Oh, it must be a small rotating globe, Shannon. Is it up to date? Oh, you're going to show us? Yay. Oh, I loved it. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's awesome. 3D printed toilet. A book on metal literacy.
It's not full size. It's not a full size toilet.
Well, I hope not. All right. That was awesome. Thank you all so much. Keep putting them in if you would like. I'm going to introduce you to Jeffrey Stoffer. I'm really so pleased that Jeffrey was able to be here today. Jeffrey and I met virtually in 2015, 2016, something like that.
Something like that. So wow, it's been we're 5 years. We've had yeah,
crazy, right? And at that point, Jeffrey was at the Action Community Library, and he was doing all this really interesting work with video, but also computational thinking and coding. And he was a part of the library's Ready to Code project and research we did prior to that project. And I just have always been really impressed with the way that Jeffrey has thought about how to integrate the coding activities into the work that he's doing with young people and families. So I asked him to talk with you today about that. But I just have to say, Jeffrey, I still at least once a month talk about the preschool mat and loops.
And loops.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe you can talk about that at some point. But Jeffrey, I will turn it over to you, and thank you so much for being here.
I'm going to do real quick one logistic thing. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself so that there's no like background noise. And when you want to speak, just unmute yourself. We do encourage participation in speaking, but this is one small logistical thing that will help the call go much more smoothly. So with that said, Jeffrey, take it away.
Okay. So I think I've been working in coding programming maybe since about 2012. And back then the idea was, man, these iPads are really cool. And it seems like everybody is making an app. Well, why can't we somehow figure out how to teach our kids how to make apps? So then they're now going to be able to be the creators of these things that I have now at my library that they're obsessed with. It was not as easy as one thinks to just create an app out of nowhere. And then that came into question, well, what exists currently that kids can start coding with? And so over time, I've done tons and tons of different types of coding programs. We've used everything. We've used Prenda. We've used Google CS. We've used Scratch. And one of the things that we've found is that every kid sort of has their own interests and their own goals. They don't even call them goals. They just basically have this sort of thing that is in the back of their mind that says, this is the reason why I want to code. Some of it is because they want to be social. And others is that they just want to be able to create the next awesome Five Nights at Freddy's game. And so what I've always been doing with my crew is I talk to them and I ask them what are they interested in doing. So moving now to 2020, I've been doing coding programs with kids for a really, really long time now. And the thing is that some programs work better for some and then some work better for others. And one of the things that I like to do a lot in my programming is sort of bringing my group together and making them into a team. So we only actually spend about 30 minutes of our hour-and-a-half programming coding. And the reason why we do this is for the first 20 minutes of the time, we actually just get to know each other. We hang out, we chat, we get in a circle, we ask random questions, we roll the dice and see what we're going to say. And remember that I work at the main branch of the Mesa Public Library. So it's a huge, huge city at this point. And so every week I have some different kids. And then about 75% of my kids are the same kids that come every week. So every week we're introducing new kids to the crew. And then every week there's some random kids that aren't there. And I think we get an average about 12 to 15 kids every week. So we get to know each other. And then I set expectations. I had to learn this a long time ago is that if I let my crew just do absolutely anything they want, what happens is that they end up wanting to play games and scream at each other. So I basically give them the options of what do you want to create or what kind of puzzles do you want to solve? And I leave them open to doing code.org, Google CS, Khan Academy. So if they're interested in doing JavaScript or HTML. And so that sort of gives them this point of what am I interested in and what do I want to do? And so some of my older kids, they are rocking out the JavaScript. And some of my younger ones, they prefer the puzzles at code.org. And I'm not sure if what you guys have learned and what you haven't so far, but code.org has free training, free professional training that they do where you can literally get a book that has like unplugged programming that's on top of just the regular like website stuff, where you're able to do sort of physical activities during your coding programs. And so I know Linda really loves my teaching kids how to do loops with a mat, because on a preschool mat, there's a whole bunch of dots. And so you sort of tell somebody, I want you to give them directions on how to get over there. And then they do it. Well, you're like forward, left, right, left. Well, how can you make that shorter? And then you say, instead of doing forward, you say, loop that twice, things like that. So, but we have other activities, like we teach binary, we teach to, let's see, what are some of the, we teach the vocabulary of coding, like algorithms, data structures, things like that. And so for that half hour, they get to sort of create their own unique plan of possibilities. They're sort of their own journey. And then after that half hour, then it's sort of like that last 30 minutes of letting go, being able to hang out and do absolutely anything they want. They can play on the computers, or I have a whole bunch of different sort of STEM activity things that they can play with. And some just hang out and play the games that they would love to do with each other. And others just have a really good time creating, using a whole bunch of stuff that I do with my 3 to 6 year old coding program. And so there's so many different possibilities with coding programs that are just waiting for us to find. And so if anyone ever is interested, I'm sure you guys can share my email, but I love to talk coding programs because it's one of my obsessions. It's why I started working in downtown in the first place, is because they wanted somebody who could do coding programs. And so and then yeah, if you guys are also ever interested in hearing about cognitive 3 to 6 year old coding programs, I can teach that stuff. And I gave Linda an email that has 18 planners for 3 to 6 year old coding programs as well, because that is more like creating a story time meets a baby time using coding as the background. So lots of awesome. And yeah, if I'd love to hear some questions if you guys have some for me.
That's great, Jeffrey. Yeah, if people have questions, feel free to unmute yourself. I love how you started with creating a team, because I think that fits perfectly with the club idea of Code Club. Sorry, quotes, that seems like negative, but it's not. Code Club. Can you tell them a little bit more about the 3 to 6? Because when I saw you emailed me that this morning, and I was curious, is there a way to scale that up too? So like tell them about the 3 to 6 stuff.
So, okay, all right. So when I first started, what Mesa did is they created sort of a system where they said, well, we have a 8 to 12 year old program called Code Commanders, but we would like to have a couple other coding programs that are for specific age groups. So they created one called K-Code, which was for 3 to 5 year olds. And then they created a program called Coding Around, which was for 6 to 7 year olds. And then they have Code Commanders, which is sort of like that, whatever up. It can go beyond 12 years old. I have 13-year-olds. It's not that big a deal. But when I started working, this was already a pre-existent thing. The only problem is that no one was coming to anything but Code Commanders. It wasn't placed right, first of all. It was in the afternoon. There's this adorable picture of one little girl showing up and me sitting with her with an iPad teaching her Scratch Junior. And I was like, this is great, but this doesn't work as a program if I'm just individually giving one child attention, and also nobody else is there. So I said, well, first of all, we need to think, if you're inventing a new program, how do you get people to start coming? So what I did is I put the coding program for that age group after the story program for that age group. So imagine that you, from 10:30 to 11 o'clock, you are getting story time awesome, right? Then at 11:15, made sure to give you 15 minutes to find some great books. You are now going to come over to ThinkSpot, which is our makerspace, and we are going to have a family cognitive story time together. Now, it's not a story time. I don't touch books because I felt like you just left that. You're now coming to something special and new and different. And we know it's different, but I also have families that have been coming since January of last year. And I do the same programs, and I repeat them when I finish. And then sometimes I create a new one or two and add it. So now I have about 17 weeks worth of programs. But what we do is, it's what happens when you have a story time where, you go through a bunch of steps and songs, except instead of the songs that you're singing with them where they follow your directions, we now have the algorithm of the week. Why? Because it's a list of instructions that one follows. Okay, I think a Tudita is the same kind of thing. Well, then we're going to have the app of the day. And so I have some very specific apps. And in the email I sent you, all those planners have pictures and the names of those apps. that are not specific coding apps. The idea is they are puzzle apps that complement the subject that we're talking about for the day. Whether that subject is algorithms, or data structures, or loops, or testing, or failing. And I like to introduce failing. Of course, you know, you say first attempt in learning, but the parents get it. You have all of those neat sort of things. So we have an app of the day where they play for 8 minutes, and then you're saying, it's time to get unplugged. And we have an unplugged activity where the families all have to do something together. So this is something different from story time, where a lot of families just sort of sit back and watch. This is one of those things where I have to be a cheerleader at the beginning and saying, if we're going to do, I'll have an awesome time, we're going to do it together as a what? A family. That's right. They scream it back to me. So now, while we're doing this program, I don't see a parent on their cell phone while their kid is figuring out that they can't read the ditto sheet that I put out. No, they're doing it together. This is that moment where you get that sort of cognitive bonding with your kids. And then to finish out the program, I tell everyone that they are not being rushed, but I need a conclusion for myself. So we all sing a goodbye song as well. And then I have what I call puzzle play, where I have some very, very specific puzzles that are that families can grab from, that are all in the same kind of containers, and bring them back to their tables and play with them together. Or I have a mat where families can let their kids come over, and the parents can sort of socialize while the kids play with big Legos together. And they're like soft ones, they can't hurt each other. For the life of me, I can't find them on the internet. But they're awesome. What I did is I went in my closet and I found anything that was somewhat STEM-like, that was puzzly, that you would be able to play with but go away from and not feel guilty. And I made those into my puzzles. And so then I tell everybody when it's about time to go, we clean up, and that is a K code. So yeah.
That's awesome. I think you answered the question, but I'll just make sure. And I just posted your email in the chat, so you'll be hearing from people. Somebody asked about your STEM programs, one-off versus scaffolded, and they're all one-off, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, Linda, what does that mean?
So, like you one time, and then next time you come, you do something different, as opposed to this, you don't build something, you're just, each week is different, right?
The only time I build, because yeah, what I do is I teach, growth mindset, the idea that we're gonna do, like when I first started, we only had 5 weeks of programs. So after those 5 weeks, we repeated it. And so the idea is you might not get it today, and you might not get it in 15 weeks, but at some point, this will make sense. This will be something that's special, and you will understand. So now it's like 17 weeks, but I also repeat the subjects now. But to answer your question, loops is the only one that truly, I do an algorithm program, and then the next week I do loops, because loops is the most confusing subject that I've found for kids. And so you teach algorithms, so you teach them making directions, giving instructions, one step to one step. Then you touch loops, and if they don't get loops, it's okay. All I do is I sort of walk around and I explain the loops to the parents, so they know how to solve it themselves. But the kid will, and then the kids do, just so you understand, the kids will get it. I have 3-year-olds who understand that instead of using 5 arrows, they can use 1 arrow to loop, okay? It's just that it takes a different kind of mindset to understand that you can simplify your instructions at a younger age, when we're not even using numbers yet. We're simply using objects. So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm helping them get ready for numeracy, and I'm helping them get ready for literacy. But I know we're also, the kids can't read yet, but I'm giving them sheets that have words on them. Do you know what I mean? Because they're doing it together. So yeah.
I have a question for you, Jeffrey. So you're you're in Mesa, Arizona right now, which is a large suburban, even some like urban feel to your particular branch. But you came from Ak-Chin, which is an Indian reservation, very small, very rural community. Everybody on the call today is from a small or rural library. What about that context? What do you want to share? What is interesting about that context as you even compare it and contrast it to where you're at right now?
Luke, I think one of the specialist things that I got from working in a small tribal library, and just so you guys understand, Ak-Chin was about, I think it was between 1,300 and 1,800 people. So it was a very small community. But
and there are other tribal libraries that are part of this grant also.
Well, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So when you have a smaller community, it means that you are going to see the same kids every week. And in Ak-Chin, we picked them up. You know what I mean? Like the access wasn't there for them to just instantly come to the library after school. We drove to their houses and picked them up for our code club. And then we drove them home afterwards, because it was not just a small library in a small community. It was a small rural community. So we knew that about half an hour to 45 minutes at the beginning and at the end was literally just traveling. But it taught me something that I was really able to bring to Mesa with me is you kind of are building yourself a family of coders. You are building a group of kids or families that know each other and can rely on each other and hopefully can bond with each other to become even stronger and more excited about the subject that they're learning. Some of them want to do their own thing, and that's totally cool. But a lot of them have so much interest, especially because this is an after-school experience, right? That they want to be able to bond and hang out and have fun. And so I think it shows them how special they are, that you're willing to take all this time to make this program, this impact happen, especially in a small community. So I loved it. It was one of the hardest things that I ever could have done was leave Ak-Chin, and it was simply because I wanted to start a family, and I just wasn't. I drove an hour and a half each way, and so I wanted to work closer to where I live. But you know, that was the hardest thing, was leaving such close knitness. You know, so yeah, is that. I'm terrible at ending my answers, Luke, just so you know.
No, you brought that in for a good landing. That was great. Other questions, feel free to unmute yourself and speak them out or drop them into the chat. Other questions for Jeffrey?
I have a quick question. My name is Morgan Simmons. Just wondering, I'm observing, especially some of the young kids, when they're working with picture-based coding platforms, they end up just like doing patterns that achieve the objective, but they're not actually understanding what's going on. But they get the solution correct and they move on like to the next exercise. So they're kind of like just playing a game and solving a pattern, not really understanding like what a loop is or what an if-then statement is. Do you have thoughts on like how to guide that into more of like constructive thinking as opposed to just like moving colorful blocks around until they get the right answer?
So I think I think those puzzles are really good. I think those puzzles are a really great start. But it's so funny because while you're saying it, all I can think about is the idea where a child is reading, but they are not actually comprehending what they're saying out loud, right? And so I think it's really, they're not realizing that they're learning loops, right? They're not really realizing that they're learning coding. They might say, yeah, I'm coding, but they don't actually know what they're doing yet, but they're learning the concepts. So what's going to happen next is while when they start working on their own projects or just a Scratch project in general, like one of the Google CS first ones is about making a person talk. And so there's a step by step by step, but then it wants it to repeat afterwards. Then suddenly, next thing you know, you're like, it's repeating. Wait, isn't that something that I learned? But they're not going to, of course, say this out loud, but they're going to sort of, it's in there. And so I think any puzzle coding is good coding, but you're right. They don't realize that they're coding, or they don't realize what they're actually doing because they're just solving puzzles. But I think that the more they do that, the better they're going to be when they actually realize it. But I do know what you mean. It's one of those weird things where I have one of my kids who's like, I don't get why the loop, he's creating a looping person, right? He wants the person to go back and forth because he wants a bad guy to hit. And he's like, why do, and all he does is put move and move left, move right over and over again. But he's like, how do you get it to repeat so it doesn't? And I said, well, you just passed the code.org thing, right?
Happy.
Right? And you're like,
Oh,
well,
hi.
all you have to do is put it in a forever loop, right? So.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think I was thinking in a very similar direction as you, like, and maybe just to synthesize what you said, I wouldn't worry about it too much. That's the point of that puzzle. The point of that puzzle is to a very like simple, high level introduction to this concept. Is it gonna get deep inside of them in an hour of code? Probably not. Maybe for the older kids, it'll click and it makes sense to them. But does it have to? No, because eventually they'll come up against stuff where they need that loop or that repeat block, and they need to actually understand what it does. And that's their opportunity to like really get it in them a little bit deeper at that point. So I think I agree with everything you said.
Thanks, man.
Which is not abnormal.
No, we're all on the same team. So.
A question did come in. Somebody, Lise asked, can you describe some of your STEM activities you offer during Code Club? So you had mentioned as a part of your normal routine, there's maybe 30 minutes of like where they're on a computer kind of doing some of the software screen-based stuff, but then you have a variety of other STEM activities that you
okay.
do.
So have you and I would love to I'll send you a list too. I'll give you guys just like I never actually typed out all of these, and I've been asked, Jeff, why do you keep forgetting to? And it's just because, well, we all have so many hats, right?
Yeah, well, this is your opportunity. You got 40 people on the call and another 100
I'm just gonna spit
probably.
them out at you, and you guys will just say, all right, I got it.
Okay.
So snap circuits, little bits. Oh man, what's the marble maze one where you have the marble puzzles? Yeah. Luke, if you look to the right, there's one of those on that shelf right there with a marble.
Like an Ozobot or?
Ozobots are awesome, but Ozobots, you have to have an iPad that actually is pretty good with it. Like you have to, like our iPads are too old for Ozobots. Yeah, Gravity Maze. So you got Gravity Maze. Then the snap circuits. Okay, I like putting out pattern blocks. Pattern blocks are awesome. You can get a whole bunch of different puzzles for different age groups with pattern blocks. I have what's called Russian blocks, which look like Tetris pieces, and solving those. I use that for my 3 to 6 year olds and my older kids, because man, there's only one way to solve it. And I've had a kid sit at it for 20 minutes trying to figure it out. Then you have creative STEM activities where they can just make their own stuff. Like, oh man, I'm going blank. You guys know the gears one. There's the gear one where all the gears hook together, and then the moment you turn it, all of the gears turn. But then also, are they called Da Vinci pieces? There are all these magnet pieces that my kids have actually built. You can buy like one package for about $30 of all these little magnets, squares and triangles that can build like taller than them. I had to stop them and tell them they needed to start at the floor because they started climbing on top of chairs, and it was getting really scary for me. Let's see.
A couple people chatted in some stuff. Have you dabbled with BlueBots or Code Hopper set?
I have not done. I would love BlueBots or Code Hopper. No, I have not. Spheros and what are those? The little mini ones that draw, or you draw and follow their lines.
That's the Ozobot, the
Ozobots.
Evo. Yeah.
Yeah, and Evos. But yeah, I normally put out one or two of those things, and then creative, and then puzzle solving. And so I tell anybody who's going to be in ThinkSpot during this program that it's going to get loud, because it is loud, because they are so everywhere. And all I ask them is if they please try to clean up after themselves, so I don't have to spend 20 minutes doing it afterwards. But yeah. So yeah, I can write down a list, but I think that's mostly everything that's coming off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's great. Jerry asked, have you worked with Connects at all as like a STEM idea? You know,
are those the straws? Which one's the Connects?
I think the Connects are the magnets that you're talking about.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. Actually, no, the magnet ones I'm talking about are Picasso blocks.
There you go.
But I'm going to look up Connects. Also, Tegu. I don't know. TEGU. They are wooden blocks that are magnetic, and they're a little bit more expensive, but man, just to figure out like the magnets and the polar against and the polar forward and how strong those magnets are to make rolling devices is incredible as well.
Huh. Lise is asking for stuff like that, like the magnets where you have a lot of small pieces and parts. Do you have any tips for not losing all that stuff and keeping them organized?
Get rid of the original boxes and get Sterlite containers with clasps. Yeah. Not the Sterlite ones you just put on the top, but the ones with the real clasps.
Yeah.
And then label them all with what they're specifically for. And then the only problem I have is in my 3 to 6 year old program where the parents sometimes get a little bit too close to each other with the same types. And then next thing I know, I have one full one because they were building together. But what you do is you make sure when you're doing that with the older kids is that you put them on completely different tables. And so therefore you don't have to fix it afterwards. I don't know is anybody working with the Lego Technics kind of stuff?
This actually ties in a question Beth asked you. Do you use Lego at all? Any type of Lego?
I came in and there was 20 boxes of Lego Technic stuff, but this is the caveat, was that whoever used it before got super creative with the kids, and so you'll find that one container is full of little teeny bits and one container is full of wheels. And so it was almost impossible to figure out how to do a program with it now that it's been completely, and you know what happened. They all started out by doing individual containers together. And then somebody's like, I want to build the elephant or the Rubik's Cube solver. And they're like, go for it. And then it never got taken apart correctly. And so right now they're all at Red Mountain because we have teen volunteers helping us take it back apart and put it back so we can start having Lego programs again, because it's almost impossible to run a program with those when it's so hard to figure out where everything is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, but yeah, Legos is awesome. We did it at Ak-Chin, and the kids are addicted, both creating the original concepts, but then coding them, making racers or whatever's with them.
That's cool. Zach is saying that they used microbits and saw a lot of success with them. Have you done anything with microbits?
I haven't done, microbits are the little Adrenos, right? The little,
I'm not sure. Zach?
because that's not little bits. That's microbits is like the company that makes like the little, you can make your own gamepad and with buttons. And,
Microbit is a tiny programmable computer designed to make learning and teaching easy and fun. Yeah, it looks like a little Arduino board.
okay, I haven't played with that one. I've done Raspberry Pi where I taught how to make a selfie station.
Yeah.
I did that with teens and they had a ball. They're actually
Yeah.
going to make one. They're actually going to make one of one in downtown.
In downtown Mesa?
Yeah, because
Cool.
the teens that designed it, they liked it. They liked their project so much they want to make it a reality.
That's awesome.
So,
Very
but
cool.
no, not with little bits. But I'm going to look into it because anything that is a physical, like Raspberry Pi teaches, anything that makes a hands-on experience that shows you the reactions is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was taking notes. I'm going to drop my list into the chat. If I missed anything, let me know. You can add it there. All right,
Yeah, snap circuits. Yeah.
that was what you said. I
Oh,
was just writing
okay.
down what you said.
Okay.
This is great. Other questions, comments for Jeffrey and his expertise?
I have a question. This is Jerry.
Tell me.
So we are actually looking at doing a parent presentation every 3 months. And right now, some of the kids, through Prenda, through the resources, they create their own Scratch accounts and all these other accounts. Is there a better way to manage like group activities that is not saved from a coding aspect, that is not saved on one specific account, where they can just have a group area to save their coding project so that others, so like if we're doing it as a group, so 2 or 3 people working together on a project, is there a better way to house that coding information within the software opposed to under each individual accounts, depending on whether they're using Scratch or Python or JavaScript, to be able to share with the parents?
Gotcha.
Or how would you do, or have you done these type of things, and how would you do that?
Well, one thing that I did when I was in Auction, I haven't really had a family night for a while. I haven't had ever in Mesa. Was that any of my kids that created accounts, we would not friend my personal one, but friend a generic, like Auction one, so that we're all friends together. So at the very least in Scratch, okay, you're able to easily show everybody's different projects because you're able to see all of their projects because you're connected to them. But with regular coding stuff, I mean, like, especially with Python and stuff like that, I mean, it's, as long as you just have the code all in one place and you have the thing that the program that can run the code in that same place, I mean.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question. Are you asking, is there a better way for kids to collaborate on group projects, or is there a way to get a public link so that parents can see the projects once they're done?
Right, more along the lines for the kids to be able to collaborate on the same project within the software so they can save it. Because right now, within Prenda, they create their own Scratch account or they create this, and when they save it, it's under their project list, right, under themselves.
Yeah, so like there's some workarounds in Scratch, for example. So they all have their own accounts, and let's say they're collaborating in person, then they work on it all on whichever account, doesn't matter whichever one, in person. And then as long as they save it, and I mean, it saves automatically, but as long as they publish it as a public link, then everybody else can go find that project and remix it, which will just save a version of it to their own account. So that none of the platforms have that kind of collaboration like a Google Doc.
No,
None of code doesn't work that way. GitHub, even in the professional environment, it just doesn't work that way. At least not yet. Maybe somebody will figure out a good way to do it. But the workaround is like this pushing and pulling idea that like GitHub and all of the professional development environments work on that idea. So maybe they're collaborating in person, and then everybody at home kind of pulls that version down to their own account. They can work on stuff. And then if there are individual code blocks, like functions or concepts that an individual developed, they can always turn it into a backpack item in Scratch and bring it over to that main kind of project that they're all working on together. So that's a workaround, and maybe I can write up a tutorial about how to do that a little bit better. But I think, Jerry, what you're asking is just not natively going to be included in anything, but there are some workarounds that could accomplish it.
Okay. Yeah, if you could share any type of workworkarounds you have written down, that'd be great. Because we try to encourage that group activity with some of our classrooms or some of our coding clubs. So we are expanding. We're looking to expand to an older population for coding. And that was one thing they mentioned as well. Just to work together.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's right in the culture of Code Club. We want that kind of collaboration and teamwork and people working on the same project. So yeah, I'll put that high on my list, Jerry, to create a tutorial. Scratch, CodePen, same idea that's possible in CodePen. So the main platforms that we use, you can you can use this workaround and it will work.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I'm glad you brought that up. I've never thought of that before, but that's a great
Yeah, me neither.
point.
I mean, it's so interesting to think about having a family night where you're able to show all the interesting things that they've created because you have access to be able to just show them all. And that's easier though. That's easier as long as you have all the links and have all the Python files ready to run. That's easy. But the collaboration part, Luke, I dream of the day where we can literally have a Google Doc coding where you're like, oh, you caught the semicolon that I didn't catch, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be cool. Other questions for Jeffrey? Anything else on your mind that you want to ask him? We got about 15 minutes left. Jeffrey, I think as maybe some closing thoughts, could you share any like stories, any like interactions that have stood out to you over the years? Anything that's like uplifting and encouraged you and that you point back to as a big win as you've worked, put a lot of work into coding and for kids, computational thinking, cognitive skills, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm like thinking in my brain. You can watch my eyes going up like this because I mean, we had as librarians, we're a collector of stories that tell people about the awesome that we experience. I mean, we get to collect these great stories every day. And I remember when I was working in auction, one of my kids, he didn't have the best, I guess you should say, home life. And he's so brilliant. I mean, you could just tell how, but he just didn't have that. He just didn't have that. And honestly, it was at that home life. But we wanted to be able to give him access at the library to the things that he wanted so bad. And one of those things is he wanted to create a game. He wanted to be able to do that. And I tried to give him access. I gave him access to my Udemy account. So he could do like high-end stuff when he was in 6th grade, and he was just having so much fun. And I remember it was incredibly special. Luke, what did you guys call your coding events that you did yearly? That you used to do?
The Great Arizona Code Challenge.
Yes. So I remember, I can't remember, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. This little boy, he was in 6th grade, and one of my other coders, I think Valencia, they went and they coded together at the Great Arizona Code Fest. And you know, he was so used to being told, that's great, but I don't care. That's great, I don't care. And we've always told him, just show me more. Keep doing it. You got this. And then when they won second place in the middle school group.
Let's see, what kind
And that was something that brought tears to my eyes. I'd been hanging out and helping the coders in the teen group and the middle schooler group, like for the whole 48 hours that the event had been going on. But that was that moment where he's like, oh my gosh, there's something special about what I'm doing. What I'm doing is important, and I don't have to listen to what other people are telling me. And sorry guys.
That's it, man. That's just beautiful, man. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
That's why we do it. It's
Yep.
we're able to go beyond. I mean, all of us are doing something that's beyond ourselves already.
Yep.
Just by being library, right?
Yep.
But when you get to see that impact and that smile and the word around the face, knowing, you know, you believed in me, and that's it, man. That's it.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Jeffrey, thank you. That's it. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing it. That's why we're taking an hour away on our Wednesday afternoon to try to get better at this. So that's beautiful. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to wrap up Jeffrey's portion. So let's give Jeffrey a round of applause and just say thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being with us. What an honor
Thank you, guys.
to have you. I want to take the rest of the time to talk specifically about questions about the grant, you know, stuff like that we can answer. And before we jump into that, there's another cohort member who's been doing some satellite programs that wanted to share. He had a couple cool satellite programs that he ran recently and had cool experiences with that. So I wanted to let him share about those. So Zach, do you have audio that you could, doesn't look like, I don't know if you do. If you do, unmute yourself and let's see if we can get you to share a little bit of your satellite experiences. You might have to unmute yourself, Zach. Zach, what's your area code? Maybe I can unmute you if I see you in the list here. 515. All right, try talking now.
Okay, good.
There you are.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. This is Zach Steer. I work at Erickson Public Library in Boone. And yeah, as Luke said, we started Code Club this month in-house, and it's been quite successful. But we also launched some satellite programs 2 weeks ago. The first one was at a small parochial school, and I believe the class was 4th, 5th graders combined. So that was an experience in a good way. And so we started off like we did it internally by watching the video and kind of walking through them, getting a profile and getting them set up. And it was an experience for me because I was prepared to hand off the curriculum the first time to the teacher, and I quickly realized that was not the best decision. So I'm going to hang on and attend more of those programs in the future, just to kind of continue to get them transitioned. But the experience, as Jeffrey said, has been kind of profound. Several of the students I thought were going to have a complete meltdown at first, because a lot of them have either not experienced coding or have really not had an experience with getting stuck in a way that they were stuck before. So, I kind of started off with some strategies on, how to cope with that, how to think through the process. But I quickly realized that there was one young man in the back that just put his head down, and he was done. And so I went up to him, and as others were, kind of working on their stuff, and we just had a nice conversation. I don't think somebody's really, bent down and had a direct conversation besides the teacher. I don't know, of course, what's going on at home, but he kind of just gave me this stare of, wow, you're giving me attention. You want to help. You want to assist. And after we kind of worked through some of that, the confidence grew. And I had to reiterate to the group that, coding, science, learning in general takes time, and that we don't fail. We just, something doesn't work and we try something again. So it's been really cool to not just focus on the coding piece, but just positive messaging, I think, and that coaching and mentoring. So we're pretty excited. I'm going to launch a homeschool program, satellite program, on Friday. And so we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate you letting me speak about that, and I'll keep everybody posted.
Cool. Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what else? What logistics about the grant? Logistics about a lot of you are either having just started your code club or are starting them soon. What can we talk through as a community to support you in the remainder of our time today, if anything? Lise is asking, Zach, did you set up the teacher as a guide in Prenda?
Okay, I'm hearing. Oh, let's see. Did you set the teacher? Yeah, that's a great question. I gave the teacher's email is going to be. No, how did I do this? All students have been set up in their own profile, so it's not the class. It's them as an individual. So, yeah. Good question.
So Beth is chatting in. I have one that has an IEP, learning disability, and struggles with reading. She pretty much wants someone there to walk her through every single step, I'm afraid. As we get further into things, she's going to get even more frustrated than she already is. What can I do to help? So she's got a coder who's getting frustrated, and she's afraid that the frustration isn't going away. What can we do to help this coder? I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What would you do to help this coder have a positive experience in their code club? Jeffrey, maybe this would be a good one for you to jump in on as well. Jeffrey, it looks like you're muted. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. I was like, I was
You're
somewhere.
good.
So could you paraphrase what the question was?
So they have a coder that has a learning disability, and she needs somebody to really hold her hand, and she's struggling. She's getting frustrated with things, and the facilitator is concerned that this coder is going to continue to be frustrated as she advances further through the program. And she wants to know, how can I help? How can I create a positive experience for this particular coder in their situation? So some people are chatting in some ideas, peer support, have a peer as opposed to an adult come and support her, work with a partner, have her work with other kids, use a buddy. So a lot of like peer ideas have been chatted in already. Buddy approach, set her up with a partner who's a more skilled reader. Yeah,
honestly, that really is, that is the most frustrating thing is when all of your time is being spent helping one, when you sort of need to facilitate an entire program.
Yeah.
And if you don't have volunteers who are able to help, also is it possible to get teen volunteers? one of the things that we have during the summer is we have teen volunteers, and a lot of teens have a lot of coding experience, just the basic. They don't actually know how to code, but the basic concept of coding. And so some of them can be really helpful. And if you have at any kind of volunteer group at your library, it's always nice to be able to ask if, hey, but I also think peers of your own age can be really helpful too. And but it's one of those things where you really have to play it by ear, because I know that I've had kids that became incredibly dramatic, and it's an emotional sometimes. It can be really emotional when you don't get it. But I also have had kids that sort of made the program all about them. And then you sort of, what you find is that no one's able to move on because of one kid. And you want to help them, but at the same time, you want everyone else to succeed, right? You want everybody else to be able to have a good time. And so sometimes the kid might not be happy being there. But I really do think peer support is the best.
Yeah.
Is the best in that situation.
Yeah.
Or a volunteer. Or
Yeah.
a volunteer that could individually support that child.
Yeah. I'll
Can I
just
speak
call
up
out.
and say something?
Oh, please go.
With this particular person, it's being a small town, of course, everybody knows everybody. Not a very well-liked person. So with everybody in the group, they're not wanting to help her either.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, same with your young man, home life isn't great either. But I feel like I'm not being fair to all the other kids when I sit there and have to hold her hand through the whole thing. And we're only on week number 2, and she's already frustrated. And parents are making her come. So it's like, what do I do? You know, she's being forced into it. She struggles with it. And then I get frustrated because, and I try not to let it show, but then it's like, okay, I've got all these other kids too. So I'm at a loss. I'm only on week 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I would point back to volunteers as being a good resource. If you can find a high schooler or an older teen that could be a part of the code club, and that you could tell them, like, I primarily need you to help this one coder, and that will take some of the weight off. Somebody else, Zach, messaged in and said maybe a sibling or a parent could come in and kind of be that person for them. The only thing that I wanted to add to what Jeffrey and everybody else was saying was, I think this is a temporary problem. I think a lot of coders experience frustration in the early days because they've never had to think this way. They've never had to wrestle with stuff in this way. In all of their other learning experiences, things are being handed to them, and they don't have this muscle of like, oh, I'm going to experience friction, and having the learning disability is going to add extra pressure to that. But the way that I always coach and encourage people to compensate for that is just over the top encouragement, over the top affirmation. Like, this is hard, but you can do it. I believe in you. Keep working on it. You're so close. You got this. You are smart enough. You can do this. You know, those like cheerleading statements. And after the coder gets a couple wins under their belt, after it clicks a couple times and they overcome a challenge, they begin to build confidence, and they begin to build that muscle, that growth mindset muscle. And in the future, they'll encounter obstacles. We all do, but they'll be more comfortable with those obstacles. So I think in the early days, Beth, just to say, it's hard for you. I know it's frustrating. I've been there where a single coder is taking all of my attention, but you can do this. You got this. This is a temporary problem. There is light at the end of the tunnel. This is a really important stage in your code club for this particular person. But if you can give them some dedicated resources in the early days, I think it will yield fruit down the road, in that this coder will become more independent. They'll become a more confident coder, and you'll be freed up at that point to have a more vibrant, free-flowing code club because you put in the work and effort now. So you're doing all the right stuff. You're an amazing facilitator. I don't have any doubt of that stuff. But man, I hear you, I guess. Thanks for bringing that up too. I appreciate that. And it's a delicate topic, but you all handled it admirably. So thank you. There's a couple other comments I just want to read out because they're really good. Wendy chatted in, take a moment one-on-one to acknowledge her feelings and show her that you're hearing her and understand how she's feeling. It seems simple, but it can make a huge difference. Celebrate and point out the successes she's made. Also, one-on-one team volunteers have been excellent help for us. So Wendy, that's amazing. Terry has a real practical idea. She said, we expanded our code club, the length of it to 1.5 hours. And that's helped us work one-on-one with those having challenges or progressing ahead of the rest. So maybe by expanding the time a little bit, it gives you more freedom. And then Lise says, maybe find a STEM activity, like from that list that Jeffrey had started, that she can do, that maybe she'll thrive more with the Ozobots or the Spheros or something like that. And that'll be a more comfortable avenue to learning these concepts. All of those things have an hour of code too. That's all, in our curriculum, even if they're on an Ozobot or a Sphero, they're essentially doing an hour of code as the first activity, just with those devices. So that might be a better introduction for that person. With that, we are over on time, and I want to honor all of your guys' time and all of you guys. So thank you for being here. This is our second call of the year. We do these on the, what is it, the second or third? What is this, the third Wednesday? I don't even know now. We do them at the same day and time every month, 2 p.m. Eastern. It's the third Wednesday of every month, 2 p.m. Eastern. We always send out emails and stuff like that. So thanks for being here with us today. We did record it. We'll send this out afterwards. I'm going to post Linda's coaching call link again if you want to schedule a coaching call with Linda on like high level stuff. This is super valuable. This is one of the things that you get as the grant that most Code Club facilitators around the country do not get. So this is an amazing resource for you. Linda is top notch in the country on this stuff. So I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that. Any other like logistics stuff or day-to-day stuff, feel free to reach out to us at Prenda. We'd love to help you in any way that we can. You guys are doing amazing. Let's go build something awesome, all right? Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. So grateful. Man, it was awesome.